Well, good evening, councillors, and good evening to those listening at home. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of Rother District Council. We have only one item of business, but we have to go through the full list of regular matters. First of all, are there any apologies for absence? Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Councillors Hacking and Councillors Winter.
Hacking and Winter. Thank you. And members attending remotely tonight are Councillors Barnes, Ganley and McGurk. And a reminder that those members attending remotely are unable to move, second or vote on any matter in accordance with our hybrid formal meeting protocol. And yes. Agenda item number 2, disclosures of interest and dispensations. Are there any disclosures by members of interests and any dispensations in matters on the agenda? If so, please declare the nature of any such interest under the terms of the Code of Conduct. And would our monitoring officer please advise on this matter?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I'm happy to reaffirm the general dispensation granted to all members to discuss and vote on all matters relating to LGR in accordance with 3A of the Council's dispensation policy as contained within the Council's constitution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bluter. Are there any further disclosures of interest? Councillor Byrne.
I'm not too sure whether Butter's announcement covered being a member of the Bexhill Town Council. Anyway, Bexhill Town Council declaration. Yes. Thanks, Butter.
Yes, it does, and there must be quite a number of us who are town or parish councillors. Councillor Timpey.
Yeah, same thing, Town Council, Bexhill.
I think we have a dispensation on that. So, but thank you all. And members are reminded to reiterate interest at the time the matter is discussed. I'm not sure that we have any. And we come to the real business of the evening, which is agenda item number 3, local government reorganisation, approval of business case for local government reorganisation in East Sussex. And this is to receive the report of the Chief Executive on local government reorganisation. And I call Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move the report, I'd just like to add a couple of comments, I suppose, really, if that's permissible. This is a momentous occasion when you think about it. You know, something that's going to happen in local government that hasn't happened for 50 years. And what's it going to be like for the next 50 years? Some of us might be around for a few more years, but an interesting time and very momentous time for us to identify. If you look at the time machine, back in December 2024, the government announced local government reorganisation and devolution. And I think we all drew a little bit of a breath and said, well, let's wait and see what happens and see what then actually transpires. It started to move forward. And in March of this year, full council approved a submission of a commitment to move to the final submission, which we are now at the point of doing. So 9 months, I suppose it is, or many months of preparation and involvement, we have moved to this evening for members to be able to identify their thoughts on where we're going and how it will affect us here in Rother. I would like to call on, if I may, Councillor Paul Osborne. Are you going to say any words around the
Yes.
The report out of scrutiny on Monday, Paul, which I thought was a very useful meeting, and it was really well managed, and I thought it really brought out some really good points. If I may.
Yeah, you may. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Leader. Members, you have in front of you the sort of deliberations or result of the deliberations from scrutiny on Monday evening, bullet points and resolution. I don't think, well, given the amount of traffic on the road, it wouldn't matter if I did read it all out, because the longer we're here, the more traffic will disappear. But I don't think I probably will. Yeah, we had a good discussion Monday evening. I think it's sort of worth mentioning that we as a single organisation can't make too much change to the One Sussex document, or One East Sussex document, because it's a collaboration of all the other councils as well. So we've got Hastings and Wilden, Lewes, Eastbourne, and East Sussex have worked on it. So we can't sort of make changes without their say-so as well. But we can, evidently, we can send a letter, when this goes in, we can have a letter that sort of covers our points to the Minister. So hopefully you've all read it. I can pick out a few bits if you like. Firstly, your members questioned whether Wilden District Council, we understand, are sort of stepping back. Will their sort of logo still be on the document? Will they still sign it? We don't know. High Wold Natural Landscape, we need more mention of that. Same with special sites of special scientific interest, such as the Pevensey Levels, even Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, that need to be sort of included. Benefits of reform, we thought that word was possibly contentious with some, so that might be better off saying benefits of reorganisation as opposed to advertising a single political party. Requested that natural beauty be replaced instead of the word nature. We're happy with integration of housing and social services, and that is seen as a good move. Area committees, neighbourhood area committees, there needs to be more serious attention given to these, their size and the locality. I was also concerned about parishes and town councils, whether they had enough sort of credence in this. You know, they know their patch. Will a larger organisation take as much notice of them as they should? Bits like that. The size and the makeup of the neighbourhood area committees as well. You know, again, should use parish and town councils and local knowledge. Will officers work within their boundaries? You know, will our planning department still work in this area? Same with Hastings, same with Wilden. You know, they're experts in their area. Do they still work in their own areas? Same with sort of environmental health, building control. You know, they know their area. Sort of things that, you know, it all come out in the wash, I'm sure. But it's just sort of, you know, just to make sure, really. What else have we got? Business case, decision makers. Yeah, important to consider finances of parish and town councils as well. If they're boosting their sort of responsibilities, then should they get additional finance as opposed to taxing local precept payers? There's a lot of stuff to consider, but it's all sort of there, written down, hopefully. So our resolution that we came up with, that this council, full council, recommend to Cabinet to approve the proposal on the 24th of September 25 for submission to central government by the 26th of September. Secondly, the Chief Executive, in consultation with the Leader of Council, incorporate key comments made by my committee and full council on the 24th of September in a covering letter to be submitted to the proposal to central government, and any requested changes in the wording of the business case will be subject to the agreement of other councils in support of the business case. So hopefully that's it, and you all agree with me. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, I observe that all councillors have a copy of the minute and resolution of the overview and scrutiny meeting which occurred on Monday night in front of you on your desks. And you also have a draft a resolution along the lines of that which was passed by overview and scrutiny on Monday in front of you. So I suggest that that is taken as the basis of our discussion tonight in order to focus where we're going with this. Councillor Osborne, I've been advised that point number 3 in the draft resolution, which you have, has probably been deleted from that in front of other councillors. I'm not sure. The one which says any requested changes to the wording of the business case would be subject to the agreement of other councils in support of the business case. I'm advised by our Chief Executive that we can't really make any substantial changes to the wording of the business case because it's something which is a joint thing with other councils, apart from the small ones which have been mentioned and have been incorporated. So I think perhaps for the benefit of people living at home or watching from home, well, we do hope so, don't we? I think I should say that what we're actually discussing here is a step on the way towards our own abolition and our reappearance as part of a merged single unitary authority, which will be a very different sort of organisation from the one we have here, but yet democratic and with councillors. So this is really, as Councillor Oliver says, it is quite a significant moment in the life and demise of this council after 50 years. With that, would any councillor wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It does feel like you live in this building sometimes. I wanted to, first of all, make sure that we record thanks to the staff and officers for the amount of work that they've undertaken, particularly from this authority, on these proposals. Particularly, I can think of Alice Nolan, who's taken on a whole new sort of job and a whole new description to get a lot of research and work done. And I was very impressed when a presentation came to the Equalities Steering Group, when I was the Cabinet portfolio holder for that, and presented all of the research and work that had been done, looking at other authorities who had gone through this process. And that's really helped us to make an informed decision. And it's helped make this One East Sussex proposal a better proposal. Now, I disagree with it fundamentally, and I went into a lot of detail as to why in a previous meeting, so I won't go through all of that again. But I do think that this proposal is better for the work that our officers and staff have put in, and I wanted to make sure that was clearly stated. I would have liked for our officers to have also been able to lend those talents to looking at other options as well. But that was not the case, and so they've put the resources into this, and it is what it is. Brighton and Hove Council have come forward with a different set of proposals for 5 unitary councils across Sussex, 2 in East Sussex. And I personally prefer that model, and I think they've demonstrated quite a good business case for it and alleviated some of the concerns around debt and around financial concerns, particularly looking into the long term and some of the savings and efficiencies that can be made with those 2 councils. And I think a good way forward, and I hope that Cabinet can consider this when they discuss the way forward, would be to include both proposals to the Minister to represent broadly the 2 areas of 2 viewpoints that members across this council have. So that some members support this model, some members support this model. And also I think it encourages the Minister to give residents a choice in the consultation that comes after this. I think the danger of putting forward one model is that the Minister is then tempted to just consult on that one model. I don't feel that would be a proper consultation necessarily. And I think it would be better for residents to be given, these are the options on the table, so that they have that choice and they can decide and they can look at the 2 and compare them. So that would be my comments that I'd like to put forward. And I just finish by echoing the Chair in terms of the momentousness of this in history. It is historical. And I think it's important that we all look back on some of the successes of Rother District Council, because there have been many across different administrations across different political parties, different times, and also some of the failings and some of the traps and issues that we've run into, bureaucracy in some cases or a lack of it in others. And when we're looking forward to the future, just remembering to be bold about how we put our stamp on this future of local government and not to be minded to just accept a single path or an easy path, and to make sure that our voice as district councillors, as probably the last rather district councillors, is a voice that is set in stone in history as being valuable and as being part of that conversation. And certainly I think our officers and staff, in the way that they have conducted themselves in creating these proposals, have gone a long way to making sure that we have set that stamp and set the good procedures and the good way of working that we have here as a council forward into this new authority, whatever it may look like. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I think I could say at this moment that of course, if there is a significant number of councillors who prefer some other solution to this, which can't be proposed in the report tonight, that could be referred to in the side note to be drafted by, or the proposal anyway is that it would be drafted by the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader. So that can be referred to and brought to the Minister's attention. And of course, these things go, the various councils are putting up their own submissions to the Minister, so the Minister will see the Brighton and Hove proposal in any event, and it is the Minister who will decide which way they want to go forward, and will then go out to public consultation on what the Minister thinks is right. The actual decision for tonight is not really one for this full council. Rather unusually, the decision is that of the Cabinet, which is going to meet immediately after the conclusion of this meeting. So the actual decision as to what goes up to the Minister will be that of Cabinet rather than of this meeting which I'm chairing. And with that, I see that Councillor Mary Barnes wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Looking at the government's priorities for what would make a successful unitary authority, I see the right size to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks, and prioritise the delivery of high quality and sustainable public services. I can't think of anything better than what we agreed at our meeting of scrutiny last week, because I think it very firmly puts that very much at the forefront. As I said at scrutiny, one of the most important things that's going to change, and has been an uncomfortable, you can't really call it a partnership, but something that happened in the 1970s was making housing and social services two separate services. And this puts them together. And that is so important when we're dealing with the most vulnerable people among our clientele. It is absolutely vital that we actually have the money to put together, and we will have, under the terms of a unitary authority, much more so than we have here, because we all know what a parlous state both of those are in as far as Rother is concerned, because it has been a matter of grave concern that neither of those two services have been properly addressed because of financial constraints. So it is so important that we actually are able to put this back together again. It's important too that we actually observe the present boundaries of One East Sussex, because we've got it all there. It's all together in East Sussex. And so, therefore, there are going to be huge operational changes. It's all going to be very much as business as usual, but on a much bigger scale. And we all know about how it's all going to be arranged. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. But I think it is so important that we don't get distracted by any other promises from any other suggestions of alternative ways of organising the unitary authority. Partly because the more we have getting in on the act, so to speak, and I'm talking about the Brighton and Hove suggestion, obviously the operational costs are going to be huge because we've got more departments, all with staff financial arrangements that have got to be put in place. We have got it all together in the brilliantly arranged One East Sussex. And I will follow everything that's been said about how wonderfully that's all been organised. And big thanks to not only the staff, but also to members, to the leaders who have taken up their time to do this. It's been a long time happening. A lot of decisions have been taken. Let's wreck it now. Please let us go forward on this particular plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby-Green, then Drace.
Thank you, Chairman. The criteria that was set out in December, and this proposal hits all those criteria. It ticks all the boxes: the right size based on existing boundaries, efficiencies. As the leader of the Labour group said today at scrutiny at full council in Lewes today, this isn't a Conservative document. It's not a Labour document. It's not a Lib Dem document. It's not a Green document. It's a cross-party document that has been worked on by all the boroughs and districts, including Walden, who actually commissioned the initial work. There's reference to let's put both up, which obviously isn't an option, and let's have a consultation on both. Well, this process started in December. We have consulted on this, and over 15,000 people have responded, and the overwhelming feedback is that they want to keep the East Sussex geography. It's interesting that the Brighton and Hove document came out last week. So that hasn't had any consultation, obviously. But why not, I wonder? And the final thing is that today, again, that some of the members at East Sussex, I'm sure Councillor Field would agree, and it was they're so upset that this power grab by Brighton have suddenly decided to take in half of another district council. There's been no communication, there's been no consultation. It's quite extraordinary that Brighton and Hove have the sort of arrogance, I suppose, to come out with something that sort of dictates where other people are going to be. This is obviously the right document, and I'll be supporting it. And thank you to Lorna, to Doug. I know you've worked really, really hard, all the leaders across East Sussex, and I think it's been a huge amount of work. I don't know whether we necessarily agree with the unitary. There are pros and cons, but it's happening. We've got to do it, and I think we should all get behind this really well-written document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Drayson, then Stanger.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start again by thanking the officers and members for this massive piece of work in such a short timescale, and also the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for its deliberations on Monday, and I'll be echoing a couple of things that were said then. With a tight deadline, we can't reinvent the wheel. We can only perhaps give suggestions on its direction with the covering letter. Brighton and Hove, and whilst I like the idea from Councillor Coleman that it's always better to give somebody a choice of two things rather than take it or leave it, I do think Brighton and Hove have left it too late to propose an alternative, especially as I understand that Lewes, who would be greatly affected by it, have already said, no way, Jose. I personally quite like the Hastings idea of keeping the boroughs and districts in place and having higher boards taking on some of County Council current obligations. But again, they left it too late. We're left with this one. And we're told we can't really change it, but we can make sure our covering letter highlights our concerns. So let me echo Mary Barnes, although she's already said it again tonight, that we need to remind the government and One East Sussex about the high wheeled national landscape and the other protected areas, because it'd be easy for them in 2 years for someone to turn around and say, well, nobody mentioned it. So let's make sure we mention it so they know it's on the agenda. It's important, it's important to be mentioned. A couple of councillors made reference to removing the word reform and replacing it with reorganisation. This is important. It is more than just semantics. The government can easily have called it local government reform, but they didn't. So I have to presume that they called it reorganisation for a reason. So let's not change their wording. My other concern was highlighted by Councillor Byrne and mentioned by others is the involvement of town and parish councils. Once the districts and boroughs have gone, the local input, local democracy can only come from the town and parish councils. They can't be excluded. Now, I get that this government has probably followed the previous government in not trusting town and parish councils to deliver and have tried to ignore them. We've only got to look at the neighbourhood board, a government-appointed body in Bexhill responsible for £20 million worth of spending in Bexhill to improve Bexhill, but deliberately excluded any representatives from Bexhill who've been elected by the residents. Instead, the government went to the people it wanted, and in turn they picked the people they wanted. We cannot have a unitary authority appointing area bodies acting somewhere between the town councils and them appointing bodies to act. We've got to have the local and town parishes. Perhaps the government need to look again at their proposed or often talked about white paper this September, supposedly on town and parish councils, that they haven't produced. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanger.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'd like to echo what colleagues have said tonight. So I also want to thank Lorna, officers, senior members of other district council and authorities across the region for their hard work in a tight timescale and under difficult circumstances. None of us chose this. It has been forced upon us. Tonight, we are asked to decide on the future of local government in East Sussex. Many models have been considered. The evidence points strongly to the One East Sussex model as the most viable of those options. It avoids costly disruption of splitting services, changing boundaries, and gives us a stronger voice in the new Sussex mayoral authority. But we must also be honest, even this model does not solve the fundamental problem. Without proper long-term investment from central governments, any new council will face huge financial pressures. Adult social care, children's services, homelessness, local environment, Highfield National Landscape, Pevensey Levels, to name a few, education, SEND provision and other essential services are all underfunded. Reorganisation alone is not the answer. Fair funding is. I'm also deeply concerned about the democratic representation. Moving from around 240 councillors in East Sussex to just 100 risks disconnecting us from the residents and businesses we are elected to serve. If One East Sussex is to go ahead, it must come with strong commitments to neighbourhood governance, empowering parish and town councils, local area committees and clear ways of communities to influence decisions. So tonight I support the submission of the One East Sussex business case, but my support is conditional on safeguards for local representation, transparent transitional planning and continued pressure on government to properly fund local government services. That way we can shape this change while standing up for the people and communities we represent.
Thank you. I've got quite a queue of councillors who wish to speak. First of all, we'll have Councillor Clark, but then I have some online, Councillors McGurk, Maynard, and then Councillor Prochak in the room. So, yes, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. With my other hat on, this morning the East Sussex County Council passed the proposal for one council with full support from all parties. It was pretty much unanimous. I actually think, in some ways, I congratulate the Labour Party for coming forward with unity authority proposals, because I think they realise that the status quo does not deliver. Whether it's Roberts Services or East Sussex Services, they're underfunded. At East Sussex, I despair when we've got adult social care, millions of pounds overspent because we have to carry out our statutory duties, the same with children's services. We here are pushing on as hard as we can with housing initiatives, buying houses. The Labour Party have said quite clearly that if you become a unity authority and run with us, you will be better funded, and that is in the best interest of our residents. So that is why I support this proposal.
Thank you. I'll now take some online councillors. Councillor McGurk first.
Hi hi. Yeah, I'll just keep it sweet because short and sweet. Because I'm not sure how well you'll be able to hear me. I realise I can't vote tonight. The votes with cabinet, but I'm hoping the cabinet will take into account.
I'm sorry, Councillor McGurk. I think it's going to be a bit like the BBC. We'll have to come back to you later. Can you perhaps come out and come back in again? We might be able to hear you better. Can I go on to Councillor Maynard, please? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Sorry not to be with you tonight. I was at the meeting at County Council all day today, and I certainly feel ill again, so I didn't want to be in a position whereby I was passing on germs to anybody in the chamber this evening. So just to say, I think that I think others have already mentioned the fact that the huge amount of work that's gone into this, and how thus far apart from, and I'll come to that in a minute, apart from the Labour Party taking a different view, it's been broadly speaking consensus, and I think that that's really heartening. And I think they genuinely, the amount of work that senior officers across all of the authorities involved in districts and boroughs, and of course the county council, have put in a huge amount of work. The leader of the county council, the leader of all the respective districts and borough councils have put in a huge amount of work, and credit should go where credit is due for the quality of the paper that is in front of us this evening. And I think that the message is just really clear within that document. It's that the One Sussex model really is the only option in town that both satisfies what the original white paper says and has the potential to deliver. And I think those are the two core principles. What has come forth from Brighton and Hove, frankly, we need to out it for what it is a little bit of a nonsense, in that you can't just suddenly start grabbing at bits to make small authorities that, and financially I don't think it would have any traction at all. It would be hugely difficult to provide those services. To actually align those services in the areas in which people receive them, cutting across not only district and borough boundaries, but upper tier of boundaries. It is frankly a nonsense. I think we have to be really clear and have to be, absolutely transparent with the public that the model that works is the one that hopefully the cabinet will sign off tonight. It's already been signed off elsewhere in other authorities across East Sussex. I think. We've got to be really clear and disassociate ourselves from the comments were made before, where we talked about East Sussex Part 2 or East Sussex Mark 2, because that's a nonsense. What's being proposed is an entirely new authority with all the districts and boroughs gone and East Sussex County Council gone. I think Council has made some really sensible suggestions about the future role of town and parish councils and concerns they might have. And I think within this model, we have got the wriggle room to make sure that we can attend to some of those concerns, perhaps not all of them, but that, nothing's perfect, but we can do that. And the other one, of course, is to make sure that financially, that going forward, that we do the best we can within the limited resources that we have. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Prochak.
Thank you very much, Chair. And echoing Councillor Coleman's words about acknowledging the weekly work, I think, that our leader and officers spent on this. And there's no doubt there's been distraction from the day job. And thank you for that, for those huge efforts. I think it's interesting that our leader has said that it's momentous. It is actually the biggest shift of power for 50 years. And it's very difficult to know what it means for the public. Does it improve life for our residents? We're still not sure about those answers. And it's interesting that the model of councils, we're already the most centralised democracy in Europe. And model of councils of 500,000 residents is the biggest in the Western world, which is quite interesting thought. It's the most centralised, it'll be the most centralised local government ever. We're getting rid of 90% 90% of our councillors, 90%. I personally, and the Lib Dems nationally, think that this is a real wasted, missed opportunity to actually reform local government. And Councillor Stanger is absolutely right in what he said about it. What an opportunity is being missed here. No fiscal reform, no real devolution. And it's interesting what councils who've been through it are saying. Wiltshire said it's going to cost more than you think, it's going to take longer than you think, and it's going to be disruption to the day job. So that's interesting from a council that's gone through it. And also, the most common cause of failure in any big change is underestimating the power of community and culture. And that's what the government have done. I think in our document, we mentioned town and parish councils 8 times in 200 pages. We've got to rectify that. There's only 2 mentions of climate change, by the way. Let's look then at the costs. The transition costs 68 million. Well, it's going to cost more than that, Wiltshire told us. The other thing is the council tax. The referendum threshold, you know, that we have to have for council tax is going to be exempted in the first year. And it's going to be exempted because if you have an equalisation of council tax, the current, it's in the report, the current Bandy Rother is the lowest, thanks to the Conservatives raiding our reserves all those years ago. But Hastings is the highest. Hastings is the highest council tax. So what you need to do for harmonisation would mean an increase for our Rother residents of 6.5%. So immediately our Rother Bandy residents are going to get £135 extra on their bill. So there are costs. There are costs. I want to come on, Chair, I know you're asking me to finish, but I want to come on where this idea came from. Why did the government think this was the silver bullet for local authorities? Well, it came from a report, 2002, by the County Council, what are they called? The County Council Network. Because they said in 2020, they could say that they could save 2.9 billion by this. And that's what the government thought.
Thank you.
They've revised that now. They've revised that and said, no, there'll be losses. You want me to finish?
I really do. Yes, please. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Points well made, I'm sure. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat anything anybody else has said about why I think this is the best way forward, because I said it all this morning and everybody's said the words. But what I am concerned about is the letter which is going to be accompanying this submission. I think it needs to talk at length about the climate emergency and nature recovery, and not just in terms of our local sites, not the High Weald National Landscape, not the sites in Rye, not the sites at the other end of the district. It needs to talk about it in language which the government uses so they really understand what our issues are, given what a very precious environment we have in this county. More so, I would suggest, than some other areas of the country. That, for me, is very important. And on the subject of the climate emergency, I was disappointed to find a great pile of paper on my desk. I thought we'd stopped using paper in this council, so I could have read this on screen. But the accompanying letter, whatever we agree for as our submission, must highlight all the things which are so important to this council. And we have worked so hard and been so successful with our work on the climate emergency and nature recovery. We mustn't lose that work.
Thank you. Is Councillor McGurk with us now remotely? Councillor McGurk, can you hear me? Not yet, no. I'll come on to Councillor John Barnes online.
I'm trying.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, Councillor McGurk, it's just as bad as before.
Okay, I'll restart.
No, sorry, you'll have to try again. I'm going to move to Councillor John Barnes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I echo all that has been said about the hard work that has gone into this document. It is a formidable document. I speak as one who actually was on the Shadow Kent County Council in 1973 to 74. And if I looked at paragraph 7, the 6 requirements set by government for local government reorganisation, I would have added one more, and that is the need to avoid disruption wherever possible and promote continuity, because our clients, our customers, whatever we care to call them, are actually going to live through this change and need continuity of service. And that's why it's quite important that we don't actually, we use existing entities and existing boundaries wherever possible, because that maximizes continuity. I value the change that's taking place. It reverses one of the damaging aspects of 1974, which was the separation of housing and social services. I fear I'm going to take slight issue with Councillor Prochak. The reason why the County Council's proposal hasn't realised the savings that were identified then is because the government, in their wisdom, decided to split some of the county councils into more than one unitary. And the more you maximise the number of unitaries, the more you increase the overhead costs and hence the overall cost of the change. And really what you need is a single East Sussex. In some ways, it would even be logical to reverse what happened in 1997 and bring Brighton and Hove back into East Sussex. But I wouldn't suggest that because I think it would be against the wishes of Brighton and Hove. But to actually break up East Sussex into two, whatever its boundaries, and to actually make some of the rest of it join up with West Sussex would create the very disruption that we need to avoid and destroy the continuity of service. I hope, therefore, we will, at Cabinet, go for the single option and go for the one that is in front of us. I think it is by far the best proposal that I've seen so far and the one that I would give my full support to. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add, for those that weren't at scrutiny on Monday, when we discussed, or when the members discussed the town and parish situation and the possibility of neighbourhood area committees, it's something which I would like to feel that Rother, us here, could actually put forward a proposal that we could be a pilot so that we can actually start to see where we go. And I know this is something the Chief Executive sort of thought about, and I think that would be very, very useful for us to put our nomination forward, because I think that's very, very important, and that will perhaps help us craft and what's going forward and how it would affect, you know, many, many residents of Rother that will be a little bit concerned from the rural parts of our district.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to associate myself with virtually all the comments made this evening, not least Councillor Coleman's remarks about Rother District Council and the value it's provided in people's lives under whatever administration. I think this council has been a force for good, and I think that's something everybody here can feel proud of. I hope that we will, in our accompanying letter, refer to all the points from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, every single one of which I think is of considerable value. I'd just like to emphasise something else. I think it's important that we also take account of community groups and voluntary organisations. We very rarely mention them, and yet they're absolutely crucial. If we want to see engagement, that's where you've got engagement. And so I think the new authorities should engage with those groups, and that's one way of addressing the democratic deficit. Another way of doing it is when I went to Abergavenny, which some people here will know, is my second favourite place in the United Kingdom. And there they had a system of a one-stop shop. In the centre of town, doesn't matter whether your problem is with the parish council, the town council, the Welsh Government, the Unitary Authority, because Wales already has unitary councils throughout the entire country. In that one place, you can get satisfaction. And I lingered a bit, being a bit of a nerd, to see whether people were satisfied with what was happening. And they were. So that's one of the ways. Accessibility is not entirely about size. It's about precision. It's about structure. It's about attitude. And if we get that right, the new council will work. The next point I want to make is about this very important business, and it was the point that swayed me. I was an opponent, wasn't I, of this kind of structure. And then I became sort of lukewarm about it. But what made me change was a conversation I had with a colleague about suicide and the way in which suicide is so often precipitated by homelessness or the threat of it, and how often people fall through the net because of that. What happens is that at a particular point in life where you need psychological and social support, that psychological and social support can be not forthcoming. You get batted backwards and forwards between one council and another, never receiving what you want. And there are all kinds of vulnerable people in our community in this kind of position. Single mothers, teenagers under threat of homelessness, people with all kinds of emotional and intellectual difficulties. So it's really, really important that we bring those two together, and we bring them together as quickly as we possibly can. And that's why I say that the One East Sussex procedure, because there will not be the disruption and the delay which will do things to hold that up. So I think that's a very important point in favour of that scheme. So I hope that we will stay with the decision we made last time. It is our decision. It's our officers who have been involved in this discussion. It's our overview and scrutiny committee that has actually put this forward for our consideration. And so I hope we'll stay with our decision and vote for One East Sussex tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have anybody else indicating yet. Yes, Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's worth mentioning that sort of saying that the success or failure of this we'll soon know. And that basically is every single property in this district has a waste collection. And that affects every single person. Now, we know through bitter experience when you change contractors, it can sometimes go wrong. But at the moment, at scrutiny, we have our whatever it is, the feedback, KPIs, and our missed bins at the moment are about that much. There's literally 2 or 3 a week. It's the best service we've ever had, and the major concern is that will a change affect that, because that is the first thing that everybody will notice. They won't notice whether the wagon's got Rother District Council or East Sussex Council. They won't notice anything. They'll notice when they get home from work that the bin ain't been emptied. And that will be bad news, and the phones will ring. So that is as long as, that will basically, as far as I'm concerned, and probably 99% of the population, has it been successful? No, because they missed my bin. And that is the bottom line. That is a bottom line. They don't, public don't necessarily, they notice litter, they notice road sweeping, they notice planning, they notice building control and you know, food inspections and everything else, but it doesn't necessarily seem to affect them as much as having your bins emptied. So the success or failure, to me, will be down to that. Might be a bigger council tax bill, which would be bad news, but the bottom line is my bin going to be emptied? And if it ain't, you ain't going to be happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Councillor. Well, I assume that existing contracts will roll over and continue, and it will be a lengthy period before everything is harmonised throughout the whole unitary. In fact, I was talking to my Canadian cousins today, who had both worked in the public sector in Toronto, where they had this form of restructuring some years ago, and they're raising all the same issues that you and other excuse me, you and other councillors have been raising. So it will take a long time to work through, and in the meantime, services must continue as before for our residents. Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, I won't repeat lots of things that have been said. Very important things have been said by my colleagues before. But I would like to just mention two very basic points that our model of One East Sussex does fulfil. Remember, in our motion on rivers a few weeks ago, that rivers and nature doesn't have these geographical boundaries. Air quality, all that needs to be thought out much more globally, because then we can have a much greater impact. So I would urge that's a positive to consider. And the other aspect, I hope I can express this correctly, but as a previous employee of East Sussex County Council, and Bold is often mentioned in this chamber, they want to think it through but be confident. That's what I mean by bold. Is that the services that East Sussex currently operate are already that model of One East Sussex. I was part of the disability team, and we had the Wealdon office, the Hastings and Rother team, you can guess that's where I was, and we had the Lewis team. So they are already in that model of going across the county, and I can't see why we can't marry, work together and carry on in that way for getting the best for these services, because that's what residents are interested in. They're not interested in how we got there. They want the service, the provision to work and be efficient for them. And I don't see why we can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Rathbone-Ariel.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make reference, as some others have, towards a cover letter. And a good cover letter, to me, addresses some points that are in the document itself. And if you look through, in East Sussex alone, we have 78,000 people, residents, who are highly deprived. And in the document, deprivation is mentioned numerous times. We have 22 of the most deprived areas in England within East Sussex. And I think we should mention that when we're looking for more money, because we will need more money, and it's already been raised about the levels of funding that we're going to need to maintain the One Sussex and any other model. Water itself, per the ONS, is the N-shaped. It's a high level for deprivation and internal depravity levels. Wealdon, as we know, is actually quite well off. So the levels of inequality, when One East Sussex is formed, you know, these depravity levels will create greater bands of inequality. I think we should draw out the deprivation levels that are in the document for those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of Councillor Prochak. I believe reserves actually grew under the Conservatives during the period of zero council increases. Thank you.
Was that a question? Yeah.
It was.
Yes, I don't think we need to debate that here tonight. Thank you all.
Just looking at the facts straight a bit, that's all.
You're certainly entitled to raise a matter of fact, yes. And if Councillor, I have to offer Councillor Prochak the chance to reply to that. But you don't have to take it up. I think another chance for Councillor McGurk online. Can you hear us now, Councillor McGurk? Can you hear us? Councillor McGurk?
I can hear you, Chair, but I don't think you can hear me.
No, it sounds as if you're talking in a bucket, unfortunately. We'll, no, I'm afraid we won't be able to hear you. Okay. So if no other councillor wishes to speak, then I would be looking for a seconder to Councillor Oliver's motion. Councillor Stanger, we have a seconder. So I think I shall read out what the draft resolution is, the motion. The motion is that full council recommend Cabinet approve the proposal on the 24th of September 2025 for submission to central government by the 26th of September. I'm looking at an old version. Let me start again. Full Council recommend Cabinet approve the business case proposal for submission to central government by the 26th of September 2025. And point 2, the Chief Executive, in consultation with the Leader of the Council, incorporate key comments made by Full Council and overview and scrutiny into a covering letter, which is to be submitted with the proposal to central government. So that is the motion that we are voting on, and it should be on the desk in front of you and not an old version as I had. So I would then call on all councillors who are in favour of that to show. In favour.
Sorry, we've got a different number.
Sorry, if you keep your hands up, please. We miscounted.
What do you make it, Butter? 22.
And all those against. All those against. I see none against, and those who abstain, abstentions. There's one to the side of me here as well. How many? 13. Yes, there were 22 councillors in favour, none against, and 13 abstentions. The motion is therefore carried. Thank you for that, councillors. Before I conclude this meeting, I repeat what I said earlier, that a cabinet meeting will immediately follow the closure of this meeting. Please stay in your existing seats and don't move around, and we shall reconstitute as a meeting of the cabinet. The meeting is now closed at 7:30 p.m. and I think we probably have